Live from LumberJillville, USA, it's the Bing Bong Goodnight Show with co-host Co-Mayor Alexa. Tonight's special guest is none other than Sheena Phelps from the Chick Foley Show. Now, put your hands together for your host, Mayor Aaron.
Thank you. Welcome in, everyone, to the 4th episode of the Bing Bong Goodnight Show with me, Mayor Aaron. Now, truth being told, I am super excited for today's guest on the show. See, I had a chance of meeting Sheena and the rest of the Chick Foley crew at StarCast, and I have to say, they were just as sweet and awesome in person as I thought they'd be.
I bet they were disappointed when they met you.
Okay, that's not very nice. I mean, why would they be disappointed?
Because they probably thought you would be a lot cooler in person.
Hey, that's not true, Co-Mayor Alexa. I'm cool. I got this cool turtleneck. I have these cool glasses, I think. But you know what? You kind of soured my mood, so I think I'll actually skip past the joke monologue for today. Let's get to the guest. Okay. Hold on. One joke. Just let me give y'all one, okay? Okay. Hey, did y'all hear about the fan? They got kicked out of StarCast just for expressing their love for Nia Jax. Yeah, all he did was bring a sign that said, "My whole heart belongs to you." Oh, come on, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad of a joke. Gosh. Alright, well, anyway, I guess we will get to the guest because that's what y'all want to see. So, Robotaminas, play us into transition. Alright everyone, I'm excited for tonight's show because we're going to premiere the figure history of Bayley figures, covering every single Bayley figure released so far. But first, we have a very special guest, and she's actually joined with us live via LJV satellite. So everyone, put your hands together for Sheena. Welcome to the show, Sheena. I'm really excited to have you here tonight, and I got a lot of questions, so I'm going to dive right in. Okay. What's it like to have a successful internet presence unlike Mayor Aaron? Okay. Who wrote this? Who wrote this question? Of course you did. Okay. Anyways, Sheena, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the Chick Foley Show and what y'all do over there?
The Chick Foley Show is a weekly podcast where myself, my husband, who we lovingly refer to as the heel husband, and our friends, the MVP, Marco Denton, and the Fig God, Jordan Wells, cover the week in wrestling, all the high points, low points, everything in between. We cover all the weekly action figure news, bring you some, nostalgia in our podcast a lot of times, talking about old wrestling events. And we actually have 2 spin-off shows now. So we have the Pod Warriors, which is the heel husband and our friend Jordan, and they kind of deep dive on a topic about wrestling. And now we have Open Mic with Marco, where he's doing like interview style, getting to know people in the wrestling community, kind of just diving deeper into what makes the people in the wrestling community tick. So we've kind of expanded and grown, and I'm excited to see where we go from here. And our Facebook group, so we have a really awesome Facebook community through, it's our Patreon members, and we call them our Foley fam, and they're all a member of our Facebook group. And it's just a really tight, close-knit community, drama-free. I always say that we are the best wrestling community in the IWC, and I mean that wholeheartedly because it's just a chill, great group of people. Again, like I said, there's no drama, which if you've ever been in a wrestling group, a wrestling community group, or message board thread, you always know there's some stuff going down. But it's super chill. We love it. We have a lot of fun. We do a picks league. We simulate Royal Rumbles where we everybody buys in. We simulate Royal Rumbles on 2K19. We have giveaways. We do live threads for all the pay-per-views. It's just so much fun. Love it. It's one of the best things that has come out of the Chick Foley account.
where y'all are definitely doing great things over there for sure. And honestly, if y'all haven't checked out the Chick Foley Show and all the different branching podcasts that are connected with them, go check them out. And also check out that Facebook group, because honestly, the Foley fam is probably the best wrestling community out there. I totally agree with Sheena there. It's drama-free, everyone looks out for each other, and it's definitely a lot of fun. So, Sheena, tell me what inspired you, or what made you start the Chick Foley Show in the first place?
It's funny because having a wrestling podcast was never on my list of things that I thought I would do. It just kind of spawned out of the desire to have a more nuanced discussion with our audience. So we had a really great, engaged, growing audience over on Instagram. And I feel like there's just a limit to what you can, what you can dive into with Instagram captions and things like that. So just to be able to elaborate on things that we liked, talk about the weekly wrestling product, we just decided that, hey, why not try this podcasting thing? And we got ourselves a couple of mics, and here we are 4 years later still doing it. So it was as simple as that.
Yeah, that makes total sense that you kind of did it to engage with the wrestling community, because y'all are super kind and super sweet in the Facebook group and easily approachable, and you definitely help the community out. Now, shout out to Marco, Seth, and Jordan, who also do an excellent job over on the Chick Foley Show, so shout out to them. But either way, today I am premiering the figure history of Bayley figures. So I'm curious, Sheena, what is your favorite Bayley figure ever released?
So in my opinion, the best Bayley figure is her Network Spotlight figure. I love that gear that she's wearing, the white and gold with the tassels. It just looks incredible. The historical significance of the figure when she beat Sasha at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn to win the title, and they had that curtain call moment with the Four Horsewomen with Becky, Charlotte, Sasha, and Bayley. Super cool. Love that figure. I have gone on the record though as saying that I really don't like open mouth head scan. So like that wide open mouth, like yelling head scan, it's just not my favorite, especially if you don't have an extra head to swap it with. If I could have basic 93 Bayley head on the Network Spotlight Bayley gear, that would be my ideal Bayley figure.
That is a super great pick, Sheena. Now, I actually had it sitting here MOC. I didn't plan this at all. It's just one of these MOC figures that I truly cherish, because you're right. It does signify a monumental and historic match for the women in the WWE. It really changed the game as to how WWE, NXT, and the whole wrestling universe viewed women, right? I mean, they killed it in this match. And the fact that we got an elite to represent it is freaking awesome. Okay, now speaking of Bayley, she recently came back, right? You got to see it live at SummerSlam. And her, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky formed their group Control. So I'm going to ask you this tough question here, okay? Of the three women, you have to make one champion, push one, and release one. Now, shout out to the Turnbuckle Tavern. That's where I got this idea from when I was interviewed on there. But I'm so curious to hear your response.
So these are always tricky because I feel like you're being mean to someone, but that's kind of the nature of the question. So when it comes to Bayley, Io, or Dakota, push, release, make champion, I'm making Bayley the champion. She really carried the company on her back during the Thunderdome era, during the pandemic era, and I don't feel like she never really got her true payoff for that. And yeah, she would make a great champion. So make Bayley champion, push Io to the sky, because she's just pound for pound the best women's wrestler in the business right now. I mean, she just is. And unfortunately, that means that we have to release Dakota. No shade to Dakota Kai. She's one of the hardest workers in the business, but unfortunately, when you're paired up with Io and Bayley, somebody's gonna fall to that bottom rung. And unfortunately, today it was Dakota Kai.
Dakota Kai, huh? Okay. No, but in all actuality, that's definitely a hard question to answer, and I don't know how I would answer it, because to me, Io Shirai is the top talent, the best wrestler, the most exciting wrestler on the roster today, and Bayley is Bayley and is just pure awesome, so I wouldn't know how I'd even answer that, so sorry for giving you that curveball there, but I think you had a good answer. Now, speaking of Dakota Kai, I'm just curious what you think here. What do you think my percent chances of going on a date with Dakota Kai?
Listen, I am an optimist. So where there's a will, there's a way. I won't put a percentage on it, but I'm saying there's a chance.
So you think I have a chance of going on a date with Dakota Kai, huh? Hey, what's so funny? Why y'all laughing? Gosh, man. Hurts my feelings. Anyway, let's get back to these questions here. All right, Sheena. Now, I know you are a huge fan of the Universal Monsters, as I am. I love the 40s, 50s, 60s. All those horror films are the tippy top, right? But I'm curious, to you, what is the scariest movie you have ever seen?
Okay, scariest movie I've ever seen. This is tough because I've watched a lot of scary movies, and many of them are scary for many different reasons, and they've been scary at different points in my life. But the one that always stands out, so it's not necessarily the movie as a whole. The movie as a whole is really freaking scary, but there's this part in Pet Sematary, and if you are scared of Pet Sematary, you already know what I'm about to say. So there is the mom, one of the main characters, her sister died of a chronic illness, and her name was Zelda, and she was by far the most scary horror movie villain of all time. Like, she appears in this like memory, and the way she moves and like runs toward the camera, like I can see it in my mind right now so clearly, and it still gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, if I saw that, like if that happened to me, I would just like bust out of my skin and die. So Zelda from Pet Sematary is by far the scariest horror movie character. Anything paranormal though, paranormal stuff like slasher movies, yes, they're scary. Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy, all that kind of stuff, those are scary. To me, the paranormal stuff is really scary because there's like nowhere to go. You can't hide from it. So anything like paranormal activity, all that kind of stuff always creeps me out. So yeah, that's where I stand on horror movies.
Huh, I've never seen Pet Sematary. Hold on. All right, let me just Google here. Zelda from Pet Sematary. Oh, God! What was that? What was that? What was that? Oh, okay. All right, so if I had to answer, I'd probably say Insidious is the scariest movie I ever seen. I actually was on a first date with a girl in the theater, and I was so scared, I almost just left her there. Oh, come on, y'all would do the same thing, okay? Y'all would do the same thing. High horse me. All right, so back to the questions there. Now, this is a deep question here. I'd love to see what you think the best women's wrestling figure is of all time, your favorite wrestling figure of all time, the most underrated women's figure, and also the worst women's figure of all time.
All right, best female action figure of all time. This is a tall order. There's so many amazing figures, but I'm gonna have to go with Io Shirai's Elite. It is just, Mattel has historically, struggled capturing the likeness of their female talent, and they literally just nailed it. It looks like she went through the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids machine and just got packaged up. It's wonderful. It got the soft goods jacket with the little feathers on it. Love everything about that figure. So I'm gonna go with EO for best women's figure of all time. My favorite, however, is my custom Mad Reaper. So if you know anything about the Mad Reaper, he's the best customizer in the business, and he made a custom Chick Foley in ring gear, all pink and blacked out, used the head from the Decade of Domination, Natalia. Just awesome. Felt very honored to get my likeness recreated by the Mad Reaper. So for obviously bias reasons, pat myself on the back, putting myself over, I'm gonna go with my Mad Reaper custom as my favorite figure of all time, female figure of all time. The most underrated would be probably, this is going to surprise some people, I think the Bull Nakano by Cella. People were kind of complaining because it wasn't in scale with everything else, or nitpicking as people do. But the fact that we got a female figure in that Hasbro form that we haven't gotten in all of the sets of Hasbros that came out, all the series of Hasbros that came out, all the series of retros, never had female representation. And yet this little mom and pop operation Chella gave us our first ever female Hasbro style figure. So highly underrated. I think we should just all be a little bit more appreciative of that Bull Nakano figure. The worst figure of all time, this one's tough because there's some early Sasha figures that are not good. Face scan just all over the place, eyeballs all over the place, just bad news. But I'm gonna go with Unmatched 1 Britt Baker, AEW Unmatched 1 Britt Baker. The figure's okay, the face scan's okay, but I don't know why. It's like they literally just it's like Britt Baker going to bed at night after she's washed off all of her makeup. Britt Baker always has like crazy makeup, like really dark eyes, and then for some reason that figure doesn't have any makeup on at all. So it just looks very Sarah Plain and Tall. Like, you see it and you're like, oh, Adam Cole, your girlfriend. Woof, that figure, I cannot stand that figure. So 4, my worst figure, that's going to be the one.
Yes, and yes. I agree. That Io Shirai is an amazing figure. It's actually the LJV figure of the year for 2020. And honestly, it could fit 2 of those categories. It could be the most underrated and the best of all time because it is that dang good. And as far as your custom goes, I remember seeing that a while back actually on your Instagram, and it was perfect. I mean, the ring attire that said Hit Mom on the side of the tights was awesome, right? And that Decade of Domination Natty, to this day when I see it, I see you more than I see Natty in that face scan. It's funny. But either way, I don't want to take any more of your time. I am so grateful and thankful to have you on the show. Hopefully we can have you and the rest of the crew on in the future. And yeah, thank you so much. Now, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you?
Aaron, thank you so much for having me. I feel honored to officially make my debut here in LumberJillville, and thank you so much. You can find me if you guys are wanting to know where I hang out. It's on Instagram at Chick Foley, Twitter at Chick Foley Show, and you can find all of our links, how to connect with us at chickfoley.com.
Thank you, Sheena. Now make sure to check the description of this video to find out where you can find them as far as links go. Now with that being said, let's dive right into the premiere of the Bayley Figure History video, starting with her first in the line figure. Basic Series 58, released in 2015. This is Bayley's first in the line figure, and this attire is very iconic to the early hugger gimmick that swept through NXT and was actually worn on multiple occasions. The first time she wore it was on the June 13th, 2013 edition of NXT, where Alicia Fox would defeat Bayley to advance in the NXT Women's Title Tournament. This tournament was to crown the inaugural NXT Women's Champion, which would go on to be Paige. Alright, so let's take a closer look at Bayley's first in the line figure. There's definitely a lot of positives here, but there are some negatives, unfortunately. Now, to start off with the positives, just looking at this figure, it makes me smile. I mean, this embodies Bayley's early babyface gimmick, the hugger gimmick, right? The ultimate babyface in NXT. Someone that not only girls, but everyone could relate to, right? She's an ultimate fangirl, and she was just super positive and outgoing, and she hugged. She was a hugger, and I loved it. I thought it was super cool, and this figure embodies that whole gimmick. I mean, just looking at it, definitely brings a smile to my face. I really like that they went with that blue with the red and yellow accents. It definitely adds to that gimmick. Nostalgia there. We have a Triceratops on the side. That's hilarious. We got some stripes there. And yeah, it's really cool that we also get this hair bow accessory that is removable, so be careful if you're buying this loose online. It might not be included because that is easily lost. Another big positive here is we have elite articulation, which we did get early in those women's basics, but unfortunately they kind of went away with that over time. Now with the negatives here, looking straight on at the face, I mean, it's not great. You know, this was before TrueFX face scan technology, which I'm a big, huge supporter of, especially when it's printed on correctly. But this was way before the TrueFX face scan time, and I'm just not a huge fan. At least they have her smiling, right? It's not horrible. I just think there's something off about it, and I can't really put my finger to it. But there's definitely going to be worse down the road, as we'll cover. But I do love that high ponytail that they gave her there. That's awesome. Also, another negative is looking at her top here is that generic sports bra mold with her top just painted on top of that, and it looks real noticeable here with the light colors. A lot of times it stands out, and they did this a lot early with these women's figures, is they would just use this generic sports bra mold and just paint the female's attire over it, and it looks hokey, and we see this a lot in the Bayley figures, unfortunately, and here it's pretty noticeable. But overall, definitely a fun figure, brings a smile to my face, and that's what I like about it. WWE Network Spotlight Elite, released in 2015. This attire is from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, which took place on August 22nd, 2015. On this night, Bayley defeated Sasha Banks in a truly iconic match to become the new NXT Women's Champion. Fun fact, this is my all-time favorite wrestling match ever, and is truly groundbreaking for the women. If you haven't seen it yet, I definitely advise you go check it out. Alright, so this is obviously a sentimental favorite for me, right? I will do a ranking from worst to best later on, and this is surprisingly not number one because I do think there are a couple Bayley figures better than this. However, to me, this is my sentimental favorite. I mean, this represents my favorite match of all time between her and Sasha at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, and that match was so groundbreaking, really. It was so emotional, so amazing, and it not only changed how the company portrayed the women, but how the world viewed women in wrestling, right? I mean, it really did that much to progress women in wrestling. And to this day, every time I watch it, it gives me goosebumps. It is such an emotional match. And to get Bayley in her attire from that match is tremendous. I mean, my all-time goal is to get this MOC one signed because I just think it looks beautiful MOC. And to have a figure representation from the best match ever, in my opinion, is tremendous. Now, my all-time most wanted women's wrestling figure would be Sasha Banks from that match, but unfortunately we haven't got it. Hopefully she comes back to the company and maybe they do an ultimate Sasha with her attire from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. It was very intricate in design, and that's probably why they've avoided it. But at least we got Bayley here, right? So let's take a look at the figure MOC first. Now obviously this is a very toyetic look here. We have this Network Spotlight box, which was a different packaging at the time with the red and black theme. We have her with her arms out. We have her entrance streamers there on her arms, which I didn't display when I was doing the turntable there. But yeah, she also has a hair bow in there, if you can see. It's black, so it's very easily lost and hidden. And on the side, we have an image of Bayley. And on the back, what's really cool is we have this little blurb talking about the match and then talking about how they did the scanning and sculpting for this figure. And I have to say, they did a tremendous job here with the scanning and sculpting process. I mean, it looks tremendous. I love the emotion in the face, the screaming, right? Like the eyeshadow here. Everything about it is just gorgeous. I really love how they nailed the attire from the match. We even have the Dusty Rhodes tribute wrist tape there on both sides. And we have a lot of deco here in her lower body with some logos and also some sculpting, molding there. And unfortunately on the top we do have that generic sports bra with the gold just painted on top. It is noticeable, but I definitely can give it a pass because, I mean, the fact that we got an elite that represents such an iconic night in the women's wrestling history is tremendous. And I actually like to display this Bayley on my Bayley shelf holding the NXT Women's Championship she won that night, without the entrance streamers here. So this is kind of post-match Bayley. And to be honest with you, that's probably my second most wanted figure of all time would be Bayley in this attire in Ultimate form that came with an Ultimate Edition form, that came with an alternate head that actually had her ponytail kind of disheveled or messed up, because by the end of this match, her ponytail braid was pulled a little further and it was a little poofy around the base here because obviously it's a very intense match, and I would love to see that alternate head in figure form. I think there's so much they could do there, so I would love to see this figure in ultimate form. Basic Series 74, released in 2017. This attire is from the February 10th, 2016, a birthday Bayley, it's my birthday, edition of NXT. On this night, Bayley would defeat Carmella in the main event to retain the NXT Women's Championship. Alright, so there's really not a whole lot to say about this figure in my opinion, and there's no disrespect to it. It's a fine figure, but compared to all of Bayley's figure releases, this was just kind of boring in my opinion, right? So taking a closer look, we do get that real nice scan and sculpt that we just saw in that Network Spotlight Elite. That's excellent. We have that high ponytail. We have a neon pink headband going around. That is not removable, by the way. And then we have this neon green attire. Now, I think they could have improved this attire if they would have made it a metallic neon green, but they didn't. So it is what it is. That generic sports bra mold, I'm going to stop pointing it out, but it's real noticeable here. And you'll see in the future they keep using that. So that's kind of a letdown there. But yeah, I mean, overall, it looks okay, but it really doesn't stand out in comparison to her other figures. WrestleMania 34 Basic, released in 2017. This attire is from WrestleMania 33, which took place on April 2nd, 2017, from Orlando, Florida. On this night, Bayley would come out victorious in a fatal four-way match to retain her Raw Women's Championship. The other competitors in this match were Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, and Nia Jax. Alright, so this is one of those figures that I didn't think much of until I opened it up at a package, and it's definitely got a lot of really neat deco, really intricate paint application here that I really love. So taking a closer look here, we do have that excellent face scan and face sculpt showing her emotion there. I really like that. And her attire is this orange base color, but what I really like, and I didn't notice, and obviously being colorblind, it took me a while to realize this, but she has not only blue and gold intricate patterns here, like on her top and on the side of her right thigh. But we also have this really cool design here with purple gold and even some white deco there on the side of the leg. I just think that's really cool. And even on the side of her top there, we have that purple design there. And then she has solid gold boots. So I definitely don't think it's one of the best Bayley figures, but I was pleasantly surprised when I opened it up and saw that they actually have purple in the deco, which I did not notice at first. NXT TakeOver Elite, released in 2017. This attire was worn on a couple occasions, but a notable match was on the June 22nd, 2016 edition of NXT. On this night, Bayley would defeat Deonna Purrazzo. Alright, so this figure is definitely a lot of fun, and it makes me smile. And just like that first in the line figure that she had, this represents that early babyface hugger Bayley so well. I mean, this is such a fun figure with so much emotion behind it, and it might be the most happy figure I have on my display shelf. I mean, look at this thing, right? Now, it is important to note that this figure looks tremendous MOC because that NXT TakeOver Elite packaging is tremendous. It's like in an X shape. Definitely check that out on eBay or Google if you haven't seen it. Or check out my full review of this figure, which I posted within the first 6 months of the channel a long time ago. So, take a closer look at this figure. I mean, like I said, it's so much fun here. I mean, we have these streamers on the wrist that are removable if you take the hands out. We have that real emotional, happy Bayley face scan and sculpt that's excellent with that high ponytail. And we have this pretty iconic blue-yellow with star attire here. We even have little intricate details that you don't notice unless you look close of little silver accents throughout. And I think that is an excellent little touch. Now, the one thing I will say about this figure that is a little bizarre, and it's not really noticeable unless you have it on the shelf next to other Bayley figures, is the part choice for the lower body. I kind of want to say it's a little stumpy, right? The legs are a lot shorter than they should be and thicker. It's weird. So it kind of throws the figure off here, in my opinion. I think if those legs were proportionate, I think this figure would be one of the all-timers, right? But it does definitely throw it off when you have it on the shelf because those legs just, they don't look right, in my opinion. It kind of throws the figure off and it looks a little silly, to be honest with you. But either way, it's definitely a fun figure, and I love how much it represents that hugger gimmick. Basic Series 87, released in 2018. This attire is from Extreme Rules 2017, which took place on June 4th in Baltimore, Maryland. On this night, Alexa Bliss would defeat Bayley in a kendo stick on a pole match to retain the Raw Women's Championship. Now, she also wore this attire when she defeated Mickie James and Dana Brooke to earn the final spot on Team Raw at Survivor Series on the November 13th, 2017 edition of Raw. The next figure we're going to cover actually depicts the Survivor Series I'm talking about. Okay, and now we're on to this figure, and I've covered this before in the past when I did the best and the worst as far as face scans go for the Four Horsewomen, right? And this was the worst Bayley scan and sculpt that they've done, and yeah, this is, I mean, spoiler alert, this is the worst Bayley figure that's come out in my opinion. Now, the main reason is this face scan and sculpt. It looks so goofy, and it does not look like her whatsoever. I don't know what they were thinking, but this is the one and only time they use this sculpt and scan. Thank goodness, because it is brutal. Now, moving on to the attire, we have this half green, half purple, and it really is a shame that that scan and sculpt is so horrendous because the attire is actually kind of neat, and there's definitely a lot of paint deco here. But yeah, I can't advise anyone go out and get this figure because this scan is just, whew. Basic Series 93, released in 2019. This attire is from Survivor Series 2017, which took place on November 19th in Houston, Texas. On this night, Bayley and Team Raw would defeat Team SmackDown. Asuka would be the sole survivor for Team Raw on this evening. Alright, so this is a pretty simple figure, but I actually really like it. Now, I came across this at Five Below, believe it or not, for $5. I got a couple of them. Looking back, I would have got a whole bunch to do some Bayley customs, or at least attempt to. My daughter actually made a Bayley custom with one of the ones I got. But either way, we went with a new scan and sculpt here, and I like it. You know, I think it's okay. I think it definitely captures her smiley gimmick there really well. And yeah, I think it's definitely an improvement over what we just saw, and this is a brand new scan and sculpt that they used for this figure. So looking at the attire, we have the all red representing Team Raw, and what they did here is pretty nice. I mean, it's a pretty average figure. It really doesn't stand out a whole lot, but for what it is, I actually really like it. I really like the black and silver accents and details, and I even like the inclusion of the black wrist tape that goes up through her hand. So yeah, I think this is a solid basic figure of Bayley, but it is important to note that we do have that limited articulation here, which we did have in that previous basic as well. Elite Series 80, released in 2020. This attire is from the October 11th, 2019 edition of SmackDown in Las Vegas, Nevada. On this night, in the main event, Bayley would show up with a new look and new attitude, taking out her aggressions on her Bayley buddies before going on to defeat Charlotte Flair and becoming the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Elite Series 80 Bayley. Now, I absolutely admire and adore this figure. I love it. It really did so much for my channel. And to me, it's one of my sentimental favorites. If I had a figure to represent LumberJillville, it'd probably be this one. And the main reason is because early on in my channel, within the first year, you know, I was doing my thing, reviewing women's wrestling figures, and I was trying to get eyes on LJV and trying to get noticed, right? And I was paying overnight shipping for all women's wrestling figures so I could get my reviews out ASAP. And I paid overnight shipping for this figure, and when I got it, and opened it up, I posted pictures of it MOC and also posted my review, and I was getting credit for being the first to show what the final product looked like because this was a rare instance where Ringside started shipping out this series without posting MOC pics, and they actually posted MOC and loose pics of this figure after I did. So a lot of Instagram influencers, people on Twitter, even YouTubers were tagging me and sharing my review, sharing my images, and giving me credit to be the first to show the final product of this Elite 80 Bayley. And honestly, it brought so many eyes, so many subscribers over to LJV to see what I was doing with women's wrestling figures, and I'll be forever grateful for all those people that tagged me and gave me credit for that. But for this figure in general, I mean, like I said, this figure is the representation of LumberJillville, and it really brought a lot of eyes over to the channel. So I love it, even if it's not perfect. Now let's take a closer look at the figure, and we will start off with the one major flaw that I have with this figure, and that's that the attire is not accurate as far as the color scheme goes. So we do have the gold boots, but the attire itself is just a plain yellow, right? There's no metallic shine to it, and it needs to have that metallic shine. You know, they went with a pastel yellow type color, and it's just not accurate. You know, if they would have used the same shade but with a metallic shine, I think it definitely could have worked because the gold that she wore was a lighter gold, close to this, but this has no metallic shine whatsoever. It's just yellow. And yeah, it's kind of an eyesore. That kind of bothers me, but you know, that's the one negative thing about the figure. Now, what I love about this figure is it is the first depiction of heel Bayley, and it came with a deflated Bayley buddy, which is great. It also came with a white object that she used to pop the Bayley buddies that night, which is cool. And obviously, being the first heel depiction of Bayley, we get this new face sculpt and face scan, and I think it's tremendous. I love it. This is kind of a split whether people liked it or didn't like it. And honestly, I really love it. I think it resembles Bayley well, but I love that it has an arrogant smirk and it has that emotion to it. You definitely get the heel persona here, and I really like that. And I also like that new hair sculpt. I think that's great. So I really love that. Now, going on to the body itself, I think they had great part choices here. I like the uniquely molded top here. That looks great. The bottoms are painted with that yellow, black, and gray, so that looks good. And the boots, like I mentioned, are that metallic gold. I like the addition of the black wrist tape and the black hand tape. That's good too. So yeah, I mean, obviously this figure is not perfect, you know. The color of the attire is a major thing and they kind of missed here. However, this figure means a lot to me. And for being the first depiction of heel Bayley, I think they did a good job. But more so, I will always love this figure and it will always be at the top of my list. Basic Series 121, released in 2021. This is the SummerSlam Basic line. Now this attire is from SummerSlam 2020, which took place on August 23rd in Orlando, Florida, where Bayley successfully defended her SmackDown Women's Championship against Asuka. Alright, so this is one of those figures that I really liked it when I first got it, but as time has gone on, I've liked it less and less. And it's mostly because the questionable body sculpt that they chose. So in today's women's basics, there's very few different sculpts and molds that they use. And here the one that they chose is, you know, I call it the Zelina Vega, Sasha Banks, Alexa Bliss body sculpt, which is the smaller in stature superstar, right? And that's really not Bayley. And the body sculpt just doesn't really match Bayley's physique, right? So I think it's definitely a weird choice on their part. But looking at the positives here, I do like that skin and sculpt that we just saw in Elite 80 with that hair. And the paint application of the attire itself is excellent. I mean, we have a metallic bluish green there with metallic gold painted on the top with great detail. And the bottoms are a metallic bluish green as well with metallic gold. So I really like the metallic paint application, but as far as the body sculpt goes, I just think they could have done a better job with part choices here. But yeah, so that's kind of my thing with this figure. Survivor Series Elite, released in 2021. This attire is from Survivor Series 2019, which took place on November 24th. On this night, in the main event, SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley would represent the Blue brand and compete in a Champions Triple Threat match that also included NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler and Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch. Shayna would come out victorious on this night representing NXT. Alright, so this figure is an all-timer here in LJV, and it's one of the best elites that I've reviewed here, honestly. And not just because the figure itself is cool, but we get so many cool accessories that we normally don't get with women's wrestling figures, including that SmackDown Women's Championship, and also a jacket accessory and a headpiece. So I did do a full review, but we'll take a brief close look. So taking a closer look, we do have the silver removable headpiece that fits on her great. Now, to get this to fit on her properly, they did give her a new hair sculpt and also a new face scan. And yeah, it's okay. I think at first I liked it. You know, it does look like Bayley, but I do not like the lack of emotion here. It's just kind of straight-faced. It's almost like I told a joke. Like, hey, here goes Mayor Aaron with the joke, and then I look over and this is the reaction that y'all have. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the face that we have. There's just nothing there. No emotion. And the problem with this new hair sculpt is it is a lot flatter and a lot more close to the side of her head so that this headpiece fits on her properly, and it does fit on her and it does look good on, but when you take it off, it does look like she just got out of the shower or something. There's no volume to that hair, and that's kind of a downer there. But looking at the rest of the figure, like I mentioned, we do get the SmackDown Women's Championship, which is awesome, and we really don't get it a whole lot, at least we didn't used to. And then we get this nice little removable entrance jacket. Now, it is supposed to have like a gold design on it, and that kind of fell flat, and it does kind of look like a yellowish tinted white, but it is supposed to have like a design. So it's either way, it's a pretty cool little piece here that is removable, and underneath we have that attire we saw in Elite 80, but this time we got blue, black, and white, and it looks tremendous. The boots down here are like a faint gold color with the white stars on the side. And yeah, so there's definitely a lot of good with this figure. I did a full review, so make sure to check that out if you want a real up-close look. But over time, looking at this new face scan, I don't know. I think it's a little bit off here, and I don't like the lack of emotion. And also that hair sculpt being so close to the side of the head, it kind of looks silly when you take this headpiece off. Championship Showdown Series 9 2-pack with Sasha Banks, released in 2022. This attire is from Hell in a Cell 2020, which took place on October 25th in the Thunderdome. On this night, Sasha Banks would defeat Bayley in a memorable Hell in a Cell match to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. So at the time of this recording, this is the most recent or the newest Bayley figure that we've had released. And I did a full in-depth review of the Championship Showdown Series 9 2-pack with her and Sasha, and I ranted and raved about that 2-pack. The figures are awesome, but that Sasha, no joke, it might be the best Sasha Banks figure we have gotten so far, in all honesty. And if you haven't checked it out, make sure to check out that review, because that Sasha, I can't say enough good about it. It's definitely overlooked. But the Bayley is just as awesome, and the Bayley is great. So taking a look at it here, it's a tremendous figure, and it's very similar to that basic 121 as far as the body sculpt goes, but just in the upper body. And here it works, because here we get a different lower body that is a lot more similar to Bayley, and I think it actually looks really good. And what I really like about this figure and appreciate is, obviously with the women's basics, the cost cutting on these things over the years has been crazy. I mean, they don't put a whole lot of effort or tooling into the women's basics, but they did a very innovative job here, in my opinion. So taking a look at this face scan, we once again get that Survivor Series scan and sculpt, along with that Survivor Series hair sculpt, and it looks okay. It looks good. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's not for everybody. I think I do prefer that Elite 80 scan over this one, but it does look like Bayley. It looks like Bayley's spot on, actually. I just don't like the lack of emotion, and also how the hair just kind of falls flat on the side. But you know what? It's a small gripe, because it still looks good. Now, the attire itself, what makes it so innovative is she had a very unique attire that night, and they did the best darn job they could with the minimal amount of tooling here. So we have that black top painted on in the design that she had, with the Bayley logo in gray with little silver studs there. She has black wrist tape that goes around her hands, and the pants are what really popped me huge. They did a great job here. So the bottoms are a good part choice for Bayley here, and they are painted to about her knee, and then we have these black knee pads. Now, what's cool is she had these pants on that she wore that were rolled up, and she had knee pads under the pants. And to give that appearance, they put black knee pads on top, and it looks great. I mean, it looks excellent, honestly. And they even gave her the short boots here, which she wore that night, with the calves exposed. So, yeah, I mean, that you could tell that they definitely went the extra mile to try to make this a accurate Bayley figure. And this 2-pack is truly underrated and amazing. And yeah, I mean, this Bayley is definitely a lot of fun. I really like it. All right, now it's time for me to rank these Bayley figures from what I think is the worst all the way down to what I think is the best. Now, she's had 11 figures total, so let's get started. At number 11, to no one's surprise, we have Basic Series 87. I mean, this to me is one of the worst women's wrestling figures out there, because the likeness is so off. At number 10, we have Basic Series 74. Just kind of a boring figure, in my opinion. At number 9, we have that WrestleMania 34 Basic. It doesn't do a whole lot to stand out. At number 8, we have Basic Series 121. I just think that the body sculpt really throws this figure off. If we can get her to stand. All right. And at number 7, we have Basic Series 93 in the red. This is a solid figure, but kind of lies in the middle as far as her figures go. All right, at number 6, we have her first in the line figure with Basic Series 58. This is definitely an iconic look, and it definitely brings a smile to my face. However, it kind of falls in the middle there as far as quality goes. At number 5, we have the NXT TakeOver Elite that comes with the streamers here. Whoop. At number 4, we have Championship Showdown Series 9. In the top 3 here, at number 3, we have Elite Series 80, one of the most sentimental figures to me, as I mentioned earlier in the review. Really brought a lot of attention to LumberJillville, and this is like the figure to represent the channel. But it's a great figure on top of that, right? So I love it. And at number 2, we have the other sentimental favorite of mine. We have the Network Spotlight Elite from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, my all-time favorite wrestling match ever, and it's a cool figure. And at number 1, we have the Survivor Series Elite Bayley. It's a solid base Bayley figure, but having the inclusion of the SmackDown Women's Championship, that jacket, and the headpiece, it all makes this figure full circle, and this is why this is the best Bayley figure available out there, in my opinion. And there you have it, the complete history of Bayley's figures so far. Now, I would love to hear in the comments what your favorite Bayley figure is. You know what, maybe even your top 5 Bayley figures. Now, with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to Sheena and the Chick Foley Show for being the guest of the Bing Bong Goodnight Show. And yeah, for a first look at all future women's wrestling figure reviews and bonus videos like this, make sure to hit subscribe and become an official resident of LJV today. Also, hit that like, hit that thumbs up if you liked today's video. Head on over to ringsidecollectibles.com and use discount code LJV to save 10% in Pro Wrestling Tees/LumberJillville to buy some merch. Now, with that being said, I hope y'all have a great night.